Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the 10th episode of the FPL Wire powered by DreamSetGo. I'm your host, Zophar, and I'm joined, as always, by my co host, Lateriser. Enjoyed the international break, Ella?
Yes, so far, festive time of the year for us, isn't it? Happy Diwali to you
Yep,
and
to
all
you.
our listeners out there. It was a good break. Spent a lot of time playing a lot of poker. That was nice. And I play this draft game on fan tracks every time during the second international break. So I looked into a lot of players, which I wouldn't normally. Did a lot of FPL reading. Enjoyed it. Didn't get bored at all. All set for FPL back again.
Yep, yep. It seems so long ago, doesn't it now? The last game week. How many points did you get?
I scored 72 points, 11 of which were incredibly lucky. It was an average week until the time Pep decided to change his mind and not introduce Phil Foden for the last 5 minutes. Because of that, I managed to get Matt Target and his 11 points on, which turned it to a pretty decent week, a 700k green arrow sitting on 72. Also, I'd just like to apologize to all the listeners for the podcast last time around. I was actually traveling, so I didn't have my mic with me. So I was podcasting on the AirPods and the sound audio wasn't that good. So sorry for that. How was your weeks off?
It was all right. 67 points. It's a bit of a weird one. Nobody scored more than 9 points, but everybody pretty much chipped in. I'm at about 900k now, ready to kick on.
Yeah,
So,
you've been up to something during the international break,
yep,
haven't you?
yep, we'll get into that. So, we also have with us again, back by popular demand, Mr. Tom Freeman, also known as FPL Cruyff 74 on Twitter. So, for those of you unfamiliar with Tom's FPL record, he has finished in the top 1k 5 times and outside the top 20k just once over 11 seasons. How was your game week, Tom?
Yeah, it was okay. 70 points. Started off well on the Friday night. Had double Southampton defence. So McCarthy and Walker-Peters kind of delivered. Then over the weekend, had a couple of late goals from Ziyech and Kane, the captain, which did well. Then there were returns for Salah, Rashford, Bamford. He was better lucky to just get the one. So, yeah, reasonable week. Sat around about 250k overall now. So, yeah, all right.
Yep, decent position. Now, a quick word about our sponsors. DreamSetGo is a global portal for fans to gain access to sporting events around the world. Accommodation, flight tickets, hospitality, stadium visits, everything can be tailored exactly to your requirements. They also do celebrity experiences, which include masterclasses with your favorite sports celebrity or something as simple as birthday shoutouts. Visit dreamsetgo.co for more. The FPL Wire is a part of the Fantasy Scout Network, and all stats used in this podcast are taken from the FFS members area. Please sign up if you haven't already.
Just taking you guys through the agenda for today. Today we're going to be talking about Zophar's wildcard. He's pushed the button during the international break and he's been tinkering. So we're going to have a look at that, what his thinking is. We're going to be talking about the Spurs conundrum and whether it's a good idea to lose them given the fixture shift that begins this game week. We're going to be talking about the international injuries. A lot of people have a few flags and whether it's a good idea to free hit or wildcard. A lot of questions coming with regards to that. We're going to be talking about Hakim Ziyech and Diego Jota, whether they're worth investing in at all. The three teams that we're going to be taking a closer look at, all three have a good run of fixtures now. So we're going to be looking at Manchester United, we're going to be looking at Man City and Leicester City. And after that, the usual fare, hot fixtures, captaincy, differentials, and Bakar stat. So the floor is yours so far. You're on a wild card. First of all, what made you push the button and what's your draft looking like? What have you been thinking?
In general, over most of the past few seasons, I've always favored the second international break as the opportunity to wildcard. I don't like going over the first IB because there's a lot of uncertainty with transfers, and this year even more so with form. So I thought there was a good opportunity. I had injuries in my team. I had Trent who got injured. I had a couple of players I wanted. Once I saw Ziyech play, I needed Ziyech in my team. No matter what happened, I needed Ziyech, and so I finally ended up. And there were a lot of players I really wanted that were about to go up in price. If I would have ideally liked to delay the wild card maybe by one more week, but I wouldn't have been able to afford this team. It would have been almost 1 million more.
So
So
you're using it as a nitro boost rather than a band-aid.
pretty much, and I think it's at the right time with the fixture shift, and I'll just walk you guys. So here's the team now, and I'll just run through everyone one by one for the benefit of the guys who are listening in the audio version, and then I'll discuss and we can comment. You guys can comment and give your suggestions. So I've gone with the combination of McCarthy and Foster in goal. I wanted to go for a 4.5 option with his nailed backup, just in case there's any injuries, suspensions, or COVID, or McCarthy suddenly falls out of form. I don't have to worry about it. The other option I looked at was Martinez, but I thought at 4.8 he was a bit expensive when I could get Target at 4.5. Now in the defense, I've gone with Chilwell. He's created, I think, the second most chances over the last 4 game weeks. That's 8. Cancelo, he's created the most chances. That's 11. Target, who's created 5 chances over the same period. He's the cheapest entry into the Villa defense. Everybody else is above 4.5. And then
the Chelsea and the City picks look like the best defense on paper at the moment.
especially with the Liverpool's issues. So, and then you have Kufal, who's again 4.5 into a solid West Ham side. I'll be playing the first 3 guys most weeks. Kufal is primarily if one of the guys gets injured, rotated. And West Ham have been pretty good defensively. The 5th defender right now, I've gone for a dud in Bernardo. I might change it to Nico Williams. I'll discuss that with you guys later. In midfield, the first name I picked was Jack Grealish. Now, even though I had Barkley and I had Barkley by himself is a good pick, I really wanted Jack. I think Grealish has been amazing. Just watching him every time, it's painful not to own him. I wanted him in my side. He was, again, one of the main reasons I chose to wildcard. Now, KDB as a captain option for City's upcoming fixtures, which are really good. Ziyech as a main Chelsea's creative outlet. He's created 4 big chances over the last 2 matches. I've still got Salah in, despite the COVID issues. We'll discuss that later. If he's out for just 1 game week, I'm inclined to keep him. Then I've got for Bruno Fernandes, who I think is United's talisman. He's a captain option for game week 9, and then I think he has 2 good away fixtures. I do think United will go on a bit of a run now.
Sorry, what was that? I didn't hear that. Finally, what?
I think we might go on finally on a bit of a run now. Might. See, it's a win-win. If you guys don't go on a run, I can come here and bitch and complain. So, and if you guys do well, I get points. So it's a win-win, isn't it?
All right. You're more confident about my team than I am at the moment. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's because you're a closet Chelsea fan, bro. So let's get into the forwards. So I've got DCL. He's got good fixtures for the next 3. He's ticking along just fine. No need to get rid of him. Now, Watkins versus Bamford was a tough decision. I've gone with Watkins right now because I think he has a higher ceiling with the upcoming fixtures, and he's actually got the highest non-pen XG for Villa over the last 4, and he might be on penalties. And Brewster as a 4.5 sub, like he's going to be an 8th attacker probably just to sub on in case anyone's injured. So that's pretty much it. What do you guys?
Must have been a difficult decision going 3-5-2 over 3-4-3 because of the sheer amount of cheap forwards who are performing at the moment. Did that tempt you? I mean, the likes of Bamford and Che Adams are all decent picks at the moment.
They are, but at the same time, I don't know. Like I'm always believe that midfielders have the higher ceiling in this game. They have the more routes to earn points. So the exercise I did, I wrote down a list of players who I felt I really wanted in my team, and it turns out that most of them were midfielders now. There's nobody I would want to drop out of Grealish, Ziyech, Salah, Bruno, or KDB. I think all these 5 guys are like pretty much nailed on picks. So it was pretty easy actually, and I think I'll probably swap those cheapy forwards around. And another good thing, I think Brewster's probably, I think maybe bar Souček, who's 0.4 more, the best 8th attacker in the game. I think Sheffield aren't as bad a team as you see now with 1 point in the last 8 games. I think their season pretty much starts now, and I do think they'll score some goals.
Your thoughts on Zoph's wildcard, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, the midfield looks pretty incredible, doesn't it? I think I'd probably try and get a Leicester defender, and I think if it were me, whether that be Justin or Fofana. But at the same time, I completely can see why you've gone for Target and Kufal and the cheaper kind of spots. Vardy would maybe be somebody else I'd look at. But again, that would mean losing one of those kind of midfielders. So, yeah, generally, I think it looks pretty strong. I mean, Zoph, did you consider maybe going up 0.5 for the goalkeepers for like a Mendy or a Fabianski or something like that? Or are you fairly set on McCarthy?
See, the thing is, McCarthy I'm not really keen on because I don't think the Saints fixtures are that great. But now, see, the problem is Fabianski is 5. I can get entry into the West Ham defense for cheaper. And Mendy, if I went for Mendy, I already have Chilwell and Ziyech. I'm blocking myself out of a possible Werner move.
Fair, yeah.
Going
fair
forward.
Points.
So like Martinez is the only one really I considered, but like the way this whole team falls in, I have 0.0 in the bank. So there's no wiggle room.
Yeah, it's pretty tight, yeah. And you've got Target in there, who is, like you say, is cheaper and has shown a bit of attacking threat over the past couple of weeks as well.
So I do have some dilemmas, like some questions which I want to run through you guys. So before I go into that, LR, what do you think?
I mean, when I look at the team first thing it screams to me is this is the ideals of our team. All solid picks. All of them are absolutely nailed on, no doubts with regards to the team. The only thing I'd be tempted to do if it was me is maybe go harder on Man City and play the fixtures, chasing that upside. And I'd maybe consider downgrading Bruno Fernandes to a Marcus Rashford. And like Tom said, spending a little more in defense. Like I feel like Cresswell is totally worth the 0.4 more than Kufal at the moment. 0.6, yeah. I feel like he's an incredible pick at the moment. And he looks like he's like in the form of his life. I mean, he could have had a goal, 2 goals, and a couple of assists in the last game against Fulham. He looks really good. The fixtures are there for the taking. So maybe spend a little cheaper there and invest a little more in.
My team value is pretty bad, right? Because we have been doing transfers only on Friday. So, like you said, I'd probably have to downgrade Fernandes to Rashford. But I do feel Fernandes is a much more superior pick than Rashford. What do you think about that?
We will talk about that. I mean, we're going to be talking about Man United later. I'll give you my reasons in terms of why I'm for that downgrade at the moment.
So let's go to some of the dilemmas I have. Let's talk about Vardy first. I know we're going to touch upon Leicester, but I think the main decision really comes down to Vardy versus Bruno. So how I could accommodate that, maybe keep Bruno for this week as a captaincy option, leave some cash in the bank to get in De Bruyne next week. Possibly something like that, but I don't know. Leicester haven't really convinced me from open play, and I think most of their fixtures, I think we'll get into it later, I don't think they're that easy, and at home I think they struggle against these bus parking teams to score a lot of goals.
I agree. Actually, I just wrote about Vardy in my article for the Scout this week, and I'm in total agreement with you. There's an argument for Vardy because he's the ultimate flat track bully for the last 2 or 3 years. He loves to score goals against the kind of teams that he's going to be facing right now. But I'm a firm believer in the fact that you don't look at goals to decipher whether a team is going to be scoring goals or whether a player is going to be scoring goals. You look at underlying stats, and the underlyings for United and Bruno look a lot better than for Vardy. I mean, and especially because of the cheap striker bracket, we have 4 or 5 strikers, 7.5 and under, the likes of Calvert-Lewin, Che Adams, Patrick Bamford, Watkins, all of them, and Antonio, who's coming back into fitness now. All of them have a higher non-penalty XG throughout the season than Vardy at the moment. The reason why Vardy is so high up the table is because they've got 8 penalties this season, Leicester. So that's that, and I don't really see that as sustainable. I feel like in open play, Bruno is a better asset compared to Vardy. So I'm in agreement with your decision. What do you think, Tom?
I can see why you've got Bruno in this week because I think the captaincy is going to be quite a big shout this week. And if you were to lose Fernandes, where'd you go then? Do you go to somebody like Calvert-Lewin or Grealish or something like that? So I can see why you're doing it. I mean, I think like I say, we'll talk about it later on when we go into Leicester. I mean, I would be tempted by Vardy, I think, because those next 3 fixtures after this week look pretty good to me. But equally, Fernandes is a good shout. So it's 50-50, isn't it?
So it could go either way. And the way I'm looking at it, maybe I can have a look at it for 2 weeks. If it doesn't work out, you can always swap it around with 2 free transfers.
Yeah, sure.
So I'd rather go with like what I know now with Bruno in form. I think then the next one, I think something that's really bothering me now is Salah. It's a very tricky one on a wild card. It's maybe like, this injury. Normally, like, if I had money to buy back Salah right away, if I had like, let's say 0.2 in the bank, I would have been inclined possibly like, to go with somebody else and bring in Salah next week. But I don't have the wiggle room for that now. If I have to get Salah in, I have to downgrade somebody else to get him in. It becomes a bit tricky.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of playing a wild card and having a transfer penciled in for the next week. I mean, I guess Brewster's fitness is key, isn't it? If he's fit, then I presume you'd be happy to start him this week. So
exactly.
I'm actually thinking the opposite. If it was me, I'd definitely have a high upside one week punt because it's 12.5 million of the money lying on your
it's
bench,
a lot.
even for a
Yeah,
week.
sure.
So I mean, you can buy yourself, if you're predicting correctly, you can buy yourself 10, 15 points for the game week, with
Well,
that transfer.
go for a Mane or something like that, you think, or
Go for Rashford. In fact, he's thinking about Bruno or Rashford. He's not sure which one to go. He can
double
get both.
up.
Both have good fixtures for the next two, and then he can decide which one to get rid of in 2 weeks. I mean, there are so many punts out there to take. I feel like James Rodriguez for the next two is a good punt,
Yeah, good shout.
because Everton have good fixtures in the next two. If it was me, and I feel like with Salah, the next 2 or 3 fixtures aren't exactly easy. Also, so he's got Liverpool have Leicester up next. After that, they have Brighton and Wolves. So that's enough wiggle room to maybe take a chance without him for 3 weeks and then get him back in if he's on wildcard. So that is something I do differently.
See, the thing is, I'm such a huge Salah fan. If he's fit for Brighton, I know I'll want him in my squad for that Brighton game. I owned him, in fact, last year during the restart. If you remember, I think he got a brace and assist at Brighton. I think Liverpool do well against Brighton because Brighton, they try to play from the back a lot. Liverpool press them and they end up conceding possession a lot. So that's the thing with Salah. And I can't go to any game week without owning Salah. So
are you losing value on him if you're selling him at the moment?
Yep, because I got him at his base price of 12.
All right, so yeah, tough dilemma, especially because you have no wiggle room. The Bruno to Rashford downgrade, we'll talk about that later, seems like a good option if at all you want to punt for the Salah position.
Yeah. I think it's waiting to see if he is possibly, like, I think he has his follow-up test on Thursday. If he had test positive for that, I think there's some likelihood that he'll miss the Brighton game as well. In which case, I might be inclined to punt on somebody like Sterling.
Yeah, if it's going for if it goes to 2 weeks, then I completely understand that move. So.
Yeah, probably not for one. Then the next one is Watkins versus Bamford. So I'll go to you first here, Tom. What do you think of Watkins' prospects over the next 7 to 8 games? And as a Bamford owner, so you're the right man to ask.
I think he'll do well. I think he'll tick over. I don't think you can be expecting returns every week. I think there'll be 1 or 2 games where he probably does blank. But if you keep the faith with him over a stretch of games, I'm pretty sure he'll do enough. And I would probably be tempted to go for Watkins over Bamford simply because of the next 3 fixtures. I think there's probably a bit more kind of potential for points for Watkins, despite me being a big fan of Bamford too. So, yeah, I think that's the right decision.
What do you think, Ella?
It depends on how you're planning to utilize this position. If you're seeing it as a set and forget position, because I generally like to switch around my big hitters, then I'd probably go for Bamford over Watkins, because the stat that stands out to me when it comes to Bamford is Leeds kept more possession than Liverpool and Manchester City when they played them this season. Yeah. So do fixtures matter when it comes to somebody like Bamford? And then I was looking at the non-penalty XG for strike for all attackers for the last 4 game weeks. We have Bamford at 4.2 something, and the next best out of all attackers in the entire league is Timo Werner at 2.1 something. So I mean, those are drastic numbers that you can't ignore. And I feel like consistently, if Bamford Leeds are going to be posting such good attacking numbers week on week, I don't think that's going to change. I don't think those stats are going to change. And a lot of their good players are coming back. I feel like Phillips is probably going to be fit for this week. If not this week, then next. It's going to strengthen the team. I feel like Rafinha is on the verge of breaking into the team over Costa, and I think he's a much better player compared to Costa. So I feel like the quality is Rodrigo's back as well. I think he had COVID or something. So the quality is back in the team for them to get over the wobble that they've had. So I'd be tempted to go Bamford if you're looking at a more long-term option. He just seems like somebody you put in that team and forget, and don't move around with that position because he's going to offer value for his price.
What I've got my eye on getting him in for DCL. I think DCL after the next 3 fixtures, Everton have a tough run where they play the likes of City, etc. So that's what I've got my eye on in that area.
Possibly. Fair enough. So, I understand playing the fixtures with Watkins for the next 3.
So Rashford versus Bruno, we will discuss once we get to United. What do you guys think on Neco Williams? Is it worth it for that 5th defender? I'm not so keen.
I'll take so not for me. I think you're blocking yourself out of the good Liverpool options when the good players are back.
Yeah, if Jota starts firing, probably want a defender later on.
Yeah, and there's no guarantee that he takes that right back slot, is there? I mean, there's options, isn't there? Milner could slot in there. Yeah. So it's just if he starts 2 or 3 in a row, then it becomes an option. But now, a bit of a risk.
And the Liverpool fans are actually split an opinion when it comes to Nico Williams. A lot of them don't really think he's a good player. They don't rate him. So I agree with Tom. If I were to bet, I'd say Milner plays the next game in that position. And not
he might try him in the Champions League. I don't think he'll play Milner 3 games a week. So he'll probably get rotated around there.
Yeah, you're right.
Cool.
The only couple of picks that would tempt me, looking back at your team, I feel like in the 4.5 to 4.7, I know you don't have enough wiggle room, but I feel like based on what I've seen, Lamptey, he's far and above the best defender in that price range. He could have easily scored a goal and gotten a 15-pointer last game week, and it's been the story for the last 5-6 game weeks. He just looks extremely attacking. I'd be tempted to go there.
Definitely.
And like I mentioned, Cresswell is the one that would tempt me.
There's also Van Aanholt. I think we talked about that before. Van Aanholt also in terms of expected goal involvement the last 2.
Yep. And then one other player, somebody who we've ignored now that you mentioned Van Aanholt is Wilfried Zaha. He's playing striker, so despite whatever numbers Palace are posting in attack, they actually look a lot better in attack this season. Zaha playing striker equals Zaha giving you points. I mean, we've seen that in the past where he's gotten, I think, about 20 returns, if I'm not mistaken. In the season, he was playing striker. So that's something that would tempt me. But your midfield looks so good on paper. That's the only other option that would tempt me.
I agree. He was definitely probably be the 6th player I would have considered apart from these guys.
Yeah.
Right. So let's move on to Spurs. Let's just touch upon the Spurs asset now.
Oh, not tempted to keep Spurs at all. I see you've done that. We didn't touch about that.
I mean, I think, it's not like I don't expect Spurs to ever score a goal again. I do think they're going to score. But then if you look at their fixtures, you have Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Palace, Liverpool, Leicester, Wolves. So these are not games where you see them scoring more than 2-3 goals. And this could be famous last words from me. But I think you have to play the upside with the other players during this stage. It's not like I'm in the top 100k where I need to play safe or play blocking. I need to make up ground. So by owning these Spurs players who are above 45% ownership, there's no way I'm going to make ground.
What if you weren't on wildcard and you had to sell one for a City asset? Which one would you sell first?
I mean, it depends because ultimately the City assets are in midfield, right? You can't really go for Jesus or Aguero now that both are fit. So it would have, I think in that case it would be Son because you need a midfield slot.
I mean, you can always downgrade Kane to cheaper attacking striker.
Well, in that sense, yeah. So I guess you could. But I'm in more favor of keeping Son in that sense because I think it's going to be a counter-attacking game in these fixtures now.
All right. You would you have kept any Spurs assets on your wildcard, Tom, if you went for it this week?
No, I don't think I would. But I think it's a risk. Spurs look as though they're moving in the right direction, but they've had a bit of an easier schedule. And I suppose the next kind of run of games will tell us more, won't they? The problem is with Son and Kane is I think their ownership is probably above 80% in the top 10k. And I think Spurs have scored 19 goals this season and Son and Kane have been responsible for 15. So, if they are going to score, there's a big chance them guys are going to be involved. And that is the worry that at this stage of the season, if you're to lose both of them and they do continue picking up a goal and assist each week, that it could hurt. But I completely see why people are moving them on. And you're probably moving them on for Man City midfielders. And those fixtures are so good. I would be tempted to take the risk too, because we're probably not going to see them massively captained, are we, the Spurs players? And so that means that it isn't going to hurt quite so much if you don't own them. Completely see why you do it, but it's a bit of a risk.
Yeah, I echo your sentiments. It is a risk, but you can't aim to get a good rank and play in a risk-averse way, especially when the fixtures are opening up for not just City. I mean, the fixtures are opening up for Chelsea. The fixtures are opening up for United. These are good teams that have done well. So I completely understand the shift of funds to these teams.
And it's not just 3 or 4 bad fixtures, is it? We're looking at probably a block of 7 taking us up right through till the next wildcard's available. So fair play for moving them on. I think that is probably the sensible move.
And they're not safe in the Europa League either. I think they're tied with points. There are 3 teams tied with 6 points in the Europa League groups. It's not like they can rest players there either.
Yeah. What do you guys think of Bale? He started the first game, but did you see that function too well? I mean, I didn't.
But it's different now that they play on the counter attack versus these teams, so it might be a bit different.
Yeah. In fact, when the good run of the bad run of fixtures is done with Spurs, I'm actually interested in them for the easier fixtures, especially now because I feel like one of the most creative and important players, Lo Celso, he's had a lot
Yeah,
of injury niggles this season, and I feel like he is the creativity in that team outside of Kane, of course. And Mourinho has spoken about him and Dombele and
yeah,
Hoberg playing together, and I think that's the ideal midfield that Spurs want. Instead of Sissoko, he's a
yeah,
much better upgrade in terms of creating chances. In the Brighton game, he came on for the last 20 minutes, and I saw him create 2 or 3 big chances. He was really good in the Champions League game midweek
yeah.
as well. He put in a man of the match performance. So that's one of the things that's encouraging me about Spurs. I didn't rate them too much earlier. It's been all Kane and Son, but I feel like now that Lo Celso is back, they might surprise a few people because he's a crucial crop in that midfield.
There's nobody else like him, is there, in that team?
Yeah.
So yeah, but completely, it's going to be one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, but I don't see Mourinho playing that midfield in these tough fixtures because he's going to be looking to break. So yeah, the points are going to be with Kane. Yeah. If you had to lose one of Kane and Son, do you agree with Zoph, Tom, that you'd lose Kane and keep Son?
No, I'd lose Son first.
You'd lose Son. What's the reasoning?
I would do. I just think Kane's just showing so much consistency. I don't think he's blanked since game week 1, has he? He's ticking over. He's got penalties. He's just central to everything they do. I think Son has these matches where he kind of just goes quite wide on the left, and he's quite he struggles to impose himself on the matches. Whereas at least Kane being that focal point, I feel a bit more confident that he's going to tick over. So yeah, I'd lose Son first, and as well that goes back to how many good midfield options there are as well. We're probably not seeing quite so many up front. That's what I would do.
All right, so you don't buy the whole argument that the counter-attacking games that Spurs are going to be playing, it suits Son more.
I think he'll do okay, but I don't know. I think you look at the matches, you look at Tottenham against that kind of opposition last year, and if memory serves me correctly, I didn't see Son, massively benefiting from those counter-attacks. I think he kind of ticked over and assist a goal here and there, but I don't think he's suddenly going to start racking up 2 or 3 goals a game in these type of matches. So, and I think those counter-attacks, Kane's likely going to be the one setting them off as well. And yeah, I don't know. I just feel more comfortable with Kane in my team, I think, than Son over a longer stretch.
We're going to be discussing your team a little later, but you own both of them, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Are you considering selling either or both?
Not this week, just because I've got other priorities, but it might be something I look at next week to capitalise on those City fixtures and with Vardy as well. So yeah, maybe a bit of movement next week, but not game week 9.
All right.
What about you, LR?
I'm with you on this one. If I had to lose one, I feel like 11 million is too much money tied up in an option. In an option I'm not captaining, especially when we have so many performing forwards in the 6 million bracket. So I'd want to pump that money into the midfield and get the likes of De Bruyne, Sterling, Rashford, etc.
So there's also something I want to share over here. There's this tweet from All About FPL with Spurs stats from game week 1 to game week 4 versus their stats from game week 5 to 8. So goals 12 versus 7, XG 11.12 versus 6.46. That's almost half. Big chances 17 versus 10, shots on target 31 versus 17, big chances created 13 versus 8, expected assists 8.7 versus 5.5. So there's been a significant drop off in the numbers. So this is something else that encouraged me. If they were, let's say they blew Brighton away by 4-5, they blew West Brom away by 4-5, I wouldn't be so keen on selling these guys.
Yeah, fair enough. They did. I mean, they've just struggled their way to a result in the past 3 games. So that's why I'm for selling them.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's Spurs discussed. We can move on to a big conundrum that people have, which is the international break and the injuries. First off, I just want to say again how ridiculous it is that we're playing international breaks, especially after playing internationals in this break, especially after what happened last time around as well. It's just terrible. Did you see Mourinho's tweet? He was so sarcastic. I love it. I love his Instagram account at the moment.
It's gold. Mourinho's Instagram is gold. And it's all just because of the federation spending money. Right now, there's 2 things. They have contract obligations with the TV companies to show these matches. If they don't have these matches, they end up paying a penalty to these broadcast companies. So It's only because of these federations trying to spend money that we're having these international games. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. I feel like the players should like say something or something.
I mean,
of that sort, 'cause-
I think they're feigning injury now. Just looking at the injury list, that's possibly what they're doing.
yeah, and given the ridiculous amount of matches they're playing this year, it's just I don't get it.
So I have the injury list up over here, and I'm sure there's more. So there's Chilwell, Salah, Brewster, Henderson, Sterling, Alexander Arnold, Robertson, Rashford, Marshall, and I think there are a few more. There's like Yarmolenko, there's Schmeichel. I can't remember an international break like this.
Yeah. I feel like though most of it is we were talking about it
yeah.
earlier, and it's overplayed. I feel like most of them should be fit for this week, with the exception of Trent and Salah. I think outside of that, none of them seem very long-term small niggles. Maybe players trying to avoid the standard typical international break injury there is. But the first thing I'd advise all our listeners to do is don't make any moves until the pressers. I'd say even hold on to them until Saturday, because we'll just get bits and pieces of information trickling in on those last 2 days. They're quite crucial.
Absolutely, because Chilwell, I think he hasn't even withdrawn from the England team. Brewster, I think he got his knock and he continued to play on till 70 minutes, so I don't think it's too. Then Henderson, I don't think we have much information. Sterling, I think the rumors are that he's going to make the squad for the Tottenham game. TA in fact isn't really an international break injury. I think it was before that, so you can't really put him in that category. Robertson hasn't withdrawn from the Scotland squad, so it can't be that bad. Rashford, I think, he's withdrawn early, so he has 2 weeks to recover. Marshall has a back problem, so not too many. Like, I think it's really, I see a lot of people have asked, I think, whether they should wildcard or free hit because of these injuries. I don't think so. What do you guys think?
I think generally outside of these injuries, it's a good time to wildcard given the fixture shift. So the only bit of advice I tell everybody is build a team, build a wildcard team, see if you're happy with it, see how many changes there are from your previous team, and if you feel like there's enough in the positive, enough upside to go for the wildcard, go for it. I'm not very keen on the free hit at the moment, despite the amount of flags that are going to show up in your team at the moment, because I feel like all of them are very short term. So if you know for sure that if you know for sure that you're going to field, let's say 10 players this game week, then I'd save the free hit, because I feel like there'll be better opportunities in the future.
It also depends on how long the players are injured for, right? If the players you are injured, if they're available the next week, then maybe the free hit makes sense. But if you have players like Trent who are out for 2-3 game weeks, just sell them. There's no point using the free hit because you're going to be stuck with them again next week.
Yeah, and take hits. It's fine. I don't see any problem. If you're removing a player who's injured for 3-4 weeks, take a hit, it'll pay off.
Absolutely.
What's your thinking there, Tom? Any temptation to free hit? A lot of people are asking about that.
I think that free hit's such a valuable chip, for those kind of blank game weeks. It would have to be pretty bad situation for me to use it now. And I think I agree with you guys. I think that, Chilwell, Sterling, Robertson, I think there's a good chance they play this weekend. But I do think we're probably in for a few more surprises, because I think the Premier League announced that 16 players had tested positive, didn't they, last night or yesterday? Now, we know some of those. We know Salah, we know Doherty. We know, I think Cody came into close contact, didn't he? I don't think he actually had COVID. But so there's a few gaps there, which hopefully we'll get wind of that towards the end of the week. So I think, good advice from pretty obvious advice as well from you guys, just kind of hold fire with the transfers, and hopefully by kind of Friday evening, things will become a little bit clearer on that. But I think the flags will disappear come Saturday morning.
How bad would it be for you to consider playing the free hit chip, Tom?
Oh, geez, pretty bad. I'd rather take a -4 or -8, I think, if I had to, because I've got two free transfers already, so it'd have to be pretty bad to use that. So, not even kind of entertained that thought.
Yeah, I agree with your sentiments. What do you think, Zoph?
I think like you discussed, I think if you have 2 or 3 injuries and you're not inclined to wildcard, it's not. If you want to wildcard, it should be a reason for the more of a way to attack. I feel if you wildcard, you have injuries, it's sort of a defensive move almost. Primarily, I think you should use a wildcard more as an attacking chip. If you feel you want to capitalize, if you want to get rid of your Spurs players, etc. You want to capitalize on the fixtures, then go ahead and wildcard. But I don't think necessarily one or two flags or two or three flags should be bothered. Like, I see people on the scout forum posting, "Oh, I have Mitchell, etc., etc." Like these guys, you're probably not going to be near your first 11 anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, and on that note, though, I mean, I think this week is the ideal week to be defensive in terms of taking care of your injuries as well as attack, because we have a strong fixture shift. So
Exactly.
yeah. All right. Moving on to Diego Jota and Hakim Ziyech. Any thoughts on these two players, Tom? You feel like Jota is a trap, one that you're going to get rid of in 2-3 weeks, or you think the upside is worth it?
I think with Jota, the only way I'd consider Jota is if they were to move to a 4-2-4 or a 4-2-3 one regularly. I think if it's going to be too frustrating to own him otherwise. I think, and the thing which puts me off as well is because their backline looks vulnerable, will Klopp use the 4-3-3 more going forward just to give them, they're more comfortable in that system. And with so many players out, I would be tempted to think that he might use that. And, he looks great when he plays, Jota, but I just don't think we're in a position to move for him just yet. What do you guys think? Are you more interested? Or?
If I was in a Zoph's position, if I was in wildcard, he'd be in my team, I reckon, especially
just as a punt, yeah.
Just, I mean, keep him until he's not starting.
Yeah, so you can get targets points off the bench again.
No. The thing with Jota for me is that he's a much superior option to Foden, in my opinion, because he's much more direct. He's much more of a goal scorer. He's a forward, and I feel like there's a lot more competition for Foden's spot compared to Jota, and I feel like he's going to be Klopp's first offensive change for any game, whether Salah, Mane, or Firmino.
So you're going to get 20 minutes at least.
You're going to get 30 minutes against any team, and for a team like Liverpool at 6.5, 30 minutes against Ajax is a good proposition. I feel like the upside, personally, because of the way I play this game, the upside is too strong for me to ignore. I'd have gone in that direction if I was in wildcard.
Yeah, if Salah is confirmed out this weekend, I think I'd be like you. I think on a wildcard, that might be something I look at just to take advantage of it, because a lot of people who are playing wildcarded won't, and they'll have too many other fires to put out. They won't have the ability to make that move. So.
Exactly.
But again, you're going to sweat the team sheet again next week when Salah is fit. That's
my issue.
Yeah. I like I mentioned, the only reason I'm not worrying about that is because I'm sure it's Klopp's first attacking stuff. So 30 minutes is okay.
I guess it's fine if you go for a setup with a more expensive forward but I feel there's so many other nailed down options in midfield.
Yeah. I don't think what you're doing is wrong. Ignore him, because that's our different personalities as FPL managers. Completely okay not going without Jota. It's just what I would have done.
Absolutely, because that's why I would never pick a player like Foden, for example. And like we were discussing this yesterday in our group, I think Jota is a better version of Phil Foden in terms of an FPL asset. He has good potential whenever he does play, but he's not always going to play. And by the way, I know you put Ziyech in the same category, but why is Ziyech in the same category as Jota? I don't know.
No, just these are these emerging. I just wanted to put that because I think there are players that we haven't spoken at length about, and they're just emerging picks that we haven't really discussed in the past. That's why I want to talk to him. I'm really, you have no idea how jealous I am that he plays for your team. I feel like such players, come into the league once in a while, once in a decade. He's had that much of an impact on your team. The way Chelsea have been playing, there's a lot of talk in terms of Tammy is helping Werner play and the formation is helping. I think that's all a load of bullcrap. It's all Ziyech. He's controlling the game like De Bruyne controls the game in terms of creativity.
I just lost you. Tom, can I
hear you, Zoph? Yeah.
I think we just lost LR's audio for a second.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
You're back.
You're back now. Could you just repeat what he said last 10 seconds?
So I was just saying in terms of Ziyech, he's had such a huge influence on the Chelsea team as well as the dressing room. Like such players come into teams once in a while, and I don't think it's a formation that has led to Chelsea play well, or Tammy playing central and dropping deep that's helped Chelsea play well. I think it's all Hakim Ziyech. I think he's that good a player, and his value is. I know he's playing fairly deep, but the quality of his crosses, the quality of his play, he's on set plays, and every time he's putting in a corner or a free kick, the delivery is so good. It's just too good an option to ignore at 8 million. He's on the top of my watch list. I mean, I'll get Grealish before him because I feel like Grealish is offering that much more value because he's uh, more of a goal scorer. Seems like more of a goal scorer than Hakim Ziyech at the moment, but he should be on everybody's wish list. He's a player everybody should be.
I saw some posts on the scout forums that amused me. They're like, he's a one-trick pony. Teams are going to get used to it. Teams are going to learn how to defend and look for his crosses. I mean, it's not like he's just started playing professional football. He's played against top Champions League sides, and nobody's been able to figure it out. And there's another left footer I remember who was also a one-trick pony, but that trick always worked. Ian Robin. So just because you know what the other guy is going to do doesn't mean you can stop it necessarily.
And it's not like Chelsea doesn't have enough talent on the field for them to make space for Ziyech, right? I mean, you can use guys like Reece James, Chilwell, Werner, Kai, Mount to distract and get the ball for him. And he doesn't take much time. It takes him 1 touch, 1 second, 1 look to, deliver in that good ball. So good value. I feel like if he's going to come into your team, he's going to stay around for a long time. And Chelsea are playing some of the best football in the last 2 weeks in terms of the sheer amount of chances they're creating, the sheer amount of good chances they're creating. So I'm pretty hot on Chelsea. I'm very happy as a Werner owner. I feel like he could have had a hat-trick in the last game. He had that many good chances. So no intention of selling him at the moment. Just happy to hold on. What are your thoughts on Ziyech, Tom? Is he on your wish list at the moment?
Well, I think he's gonna get a lot of assists, isn't he, in that team? I think with set pieces, he's aiming for Abraham, Thiago Silva, Zuma. There's big physical players to aim for, and I also think that kind of diagonal pass he plays to both Werner and Chilwell. Like you say, he's got such a pinpoint pass on him. You can just see so many assists, and I think Chilwell was saying in an interview that it's a specific thing that he's going to target him at the back post, and of course Werner's going to be around those locations as well. Is he better than Grealish? I don't think so. I think going back to your point, I think Grealish carries a little bit more goal threat. I think he's going to be in the penalty area more, but both of them are good options. Now, the only worry I have is I think the optimum time to invest in Chelsea was 2 weeks ago. And my worry now is that you get beyond that Newcastle game, and I think they play Tottenham, Leeds, Everton and Wolves. And my worry is that I don't like getting on board these players when it feels like I should have 2 weeks ago. I'd rather look to the next players and get on them just at the start of their good fixture runs. So that is the only thing putting me off them, because I know that Leeds and Everton have conceded goals in recent weeks, but when Leeds are at their best, they can be a match for anybody, as they've proved, can't they? And I think Everton, now they're getting players back now, Richarlison, Digne, James. I don't think they'll be as easy to break down as maybe they have been. So that's the only thing putting me off, and it's probably putting me off of Chilwell enough to buy him as well at the moment. Is I feel like I should have made those moves a couple of weeks ago and I haven't. So now I'm sure they'll both be in my squad at some point this season, but maybe not the time to move for them is now, kind of thing.
It's funny you mentioned that, because you spoke about the Leeds fixture in Gameweek 11, and I have Werner penned down as a captaincy option for that game, because Liverpool are playing Wolves that game week, and I think you can't go there because Man City is playing Fulham. No, you can't go anywhere else for captaincy.
Absolutely, but it's interesting, Tom, because you mentioned that.
Get your point now.
It's a dilemma, because what you're saying is something that I've encountered with players like Yaya Toure, Aaron Ramsey in previous seasons. A lot of the times you feel that maybe the halls have already gone. And you end up thinking that, okay, the water has already gone under the bridge, and you end up missing out altogether. So it's a very...
that's the worry, isn't it? And I suppose we've been in this... I don't know Grealish and I don't know Calvert-Lewin, and part of that is maybe going back to that. Maybe my thought process is that I've kind of missed the boat a little bit with them, but then they continue ticking over. So, it's a really big decision. But because I don't own Grealish, and I think I would prefer to get him, and if I do make a move for that kind of mid-price midfielder, that's maybe playing on my mind a little bit as well. But good option for sure.
I totally agree with you in the sense that if I had to pick one between the two, I would pick Grealish too.
Yeah. What was coming to my mind right now when Tom is talking about Chelsea is, we had him on the pod a few weeks ago, and he spoke about he doesn't know what Chelsea are at the moment. That's why he doesn't want to invest there. And do you feel like it's too early to say that they've found their mojo and they?
Because you look at the opposition. So Look at who they've played. Sheffield United, Burnley. I'm gonna need to see more from them against the better teams, and that's why maybe I'm a little bit hesitant. I mean, Newcastle is a great fixture, but then after that run is maybe making me hesitate a little bit. I wouldn't immediately put them up as on a pedestal above maybe other inconsistent teams like Man United at the moment.
Fair enough. Nice segue. Now that you mentioned Man United, we'll get into the teams that we want to talk about. First up, we're going to be talking about Man United. Now, I'll cut to the chase off, and I'll tell you why I think Rashford is a good option to Bruno Fernandes at the moment. It's primarily because I think Luke Shaw is injured for about 5 to 6 game weeks, and this changes two important things. I feel like Alex Telles, who's going to be playing in place of Bruno, he's going to be splitting the set pieces along with Bruno Fernandes. So Bruno's not going to be on all the set pieces as he normally is. So an outlet kind of gets less significant when it comes to Man United. And also Telles is a lot more attacking in that left back position compared to Luke Shaw. And because of which I expect Rashford to make a lot more runs inside as a centre forward. If you actually remember the Everton game as well, Rashford isn't hogging the touchline as much as he used to. He's drifting in central a lot more. And another reason for that, I feel like, is because we're not going to be seeing, there are two reasons for that. We're not going to be seeing Mason Greenwood for a while. I feel like there's too much happening there. And Solskjaer is going to be doing the right thing, protecting him and let him recover in terms of what was happening there. And also seems like the double pivot that Solskjaer settled on at the moment is Fred and Scott McTominay. Now, since Fred and McTominay are sitting in the double pivot, it makes us a lot stronger defensively. It offers a lot more protection than we're used to, which means that Telles is going to be holding the width on that left-hand side, which means that Rashford is going to be driving and making runs more centrally a lot more, which is why what's essentially going to happen is the points are going to be fairly split between Martial, Rashford, and Bruno, because these are going to be three guys that are going to be playing in a front three. And outside of that, we might have either Pogba, Van de Beek, or Mata. Mata has been playing predominantly on the right-hand side for us, adding creativity. So yeah, I think it's well worth going for Rashford at the moment because of the reasons I mentioned. He's going to be playing further forward than Bruno Fernandes, and he's going to be making a lot more central runs at the moment. I really like him for the Southampton and the Man City games as well, because he's our prime option in counter attacks, and Fred and Bruno are always looking at him when he's making runs behind the defense. So I like him for those two fixtures as well.
You'll not get so many penalties though.
Yeah. That's the factor. But I feel like you're going to be seeing Rashford matching Bruno. And I feel also one thing with Rashford, I've always said he's a very streaky player, and he does look on it at the moment. I feel like Bruno got 2 goals and assists against Everton. That brace could have easily been Rashford's. He was at the end of a chance, and Pickford just saved it. And that free goal that Bruno scored from his cross was actually on paper Rashford's goal. So, I feel like the points are there for the taking when it comes to Rashford.
How do you feel, Tom? I know you own Rashford. What do you feel about his prospects by himself and versus Bruno?
Yeah, I mean, I liked everything that was said just then as a Rashford owner. I agree. I think that Everton game, I saw some really nice movement in the final third for United, and Everton defended quite deep in that game, as I think West Brom will. I think Mata's quite important. I think we'll see him again against West Brom, going back to those issues that Greenwood is kind of facing. You'd expect to see Mata line up. I'd like to see them play the 4-2-3-1 a bit more consistently now. I know they've switched to back threes, they've switched to diamonds. I think they're best in that 4-2-3-1, and I think I'd just like to see them have a run of games playing that system. I think Rashford, looking where West Brom give up their chances, they give up a load down their right side. So I think Rashford, it will probably, if Salah isn't fit, he'll probably be my captain this week. But equally, Fernandes, if he plays well, United tend to play well. He's always making those kind of probing passes, looking to make a forward pass. I don't really buy the home and away argument. I don't know about you guys. Do you think about that? I just think they maybe face some tougher games at home. If Salah isn't if Salah isn't available, I think Fernandes or Rashford are probably the best captain options.
Yep. What do you think about this whole away thing with home thing with Bruno? Do you think there's a difference in the way they're set up?
I don't think it applies anymore because Pogba's not starting in a team anymore. What happens is in those easy home games, we're dominating possession so much. So Bruno and Pogba are playing as advanced states. There's not much difference in their positioning, which is why they're both acting as the creative anchors. And Matic was sitting deep last season. Now that is not happening anymore. What's happening is Fred and McTominay are sitting in the double pivot, and if that's going to continue, Bruno has complete freedom to do what he wants in the front four, play as a 10, stay in the box for the cross. So why I mentioned that entire Rashford debacle is because I was trying to, talk to you about the merits of downgrading that 1 million, which you can spend elsewhere, which we discussed earlier. But in no way am I saying Bruno's a bad pick. He's a completely good pick, especially if United are going to be persisting with Fred and McTominay in the double pivot, because then there is no defensive responsibility for anyone playing in the front four, because those two are really good at protecting a back four.
And the stats have improved attacking wise. Now the table I have up here, United over the last 4 are top for attempts and top for shots on target. So the attack is starting to click a little bit as well.
It's a lot of Bruno taking shots from outside the box. I'll tell you that though. He's taking shots at every opportunity. What I also like about Rashford is he's showing a lot more playmaking ability. He's created a few chances as well. So I think they're not very far off when it comes to chances created. I mean, the difference isn't that drastic, and I think Rashford is taking a lot more shots inside the box compared to Bruno at the moment. But like you mentioned, the penalty factor is always there. And with players like Bruno, Martial, and Rashford, who are fairly quick-footed, we will continue winning a fair few pens.
We know where Maguire... Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Sorry, what do you guys think about the fixtures? Because they've got West Brom, haven't they? But then Southampton and West Ham away. Then you've got the derby. Do you think you'd hold their kind of assets for a prolonged kind of spell, or do you think it's a get on them for West Brom and then move away?
See, it's interesting because I think the Southampton game is especially very suited for United's counter-attacking style. The West Ham game maybe not so much, but I think the Southampton game I'm quite keen on holding on to Bruno for, because they are playing Vestergaard and Bednarek at centre back. I think that's a game tailor-made for United to just play those balls over those guys and play on the counter-attack. And even the West Ham game is unpredictable. I think that game again could go either way. The derby, probably low scoring, but then they have Leeds, and I think Leeds again works to United's counter-attacking style.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Tom, I think with what you just mentioned, I don't trust our attack fully at the moment. It's just going to be depending on how in form Rashford, Martial, and Bruno are going to be playing together, because the entire interplay is going to depend on how these three are syncing and whether Mata is adding enough creativity. I expect Van de Beek to be playing in that position Mata is on the right fairly soon, and sort of Bruno Fernandes and Van de Beek, interchanging positions and playing the 10 as well as the right-hand side creative midfielder, sort of similar to what James Rodriguez is doing for Everton. But if they perform well in the next two, you hold. That's all. That's what I say.
That's my plan as well. Just look at the next two, then have 2 free transfers and assess from there. Switch to Vardy if you need to, switch to Sterling if you need to, etc.
Yeah, good plan.
Yeah. If I'm not selling Salah, if he looks to be out for only one game week, I need to pick up a forward for Kane at the moment, because I'm thinking of upgrading Podence to Grealish. So I am thinking about Martial as one of those options, because if you remember last season, the points were equally split between Bruno and Martial. I remember telling myself in game week 38 on the free hit that if I had to sell one of Bruno or Martial, I'd sell Bruno first because of how Martial was. But he just hasn't looked on it so far this season.
Yeah.
There were hints of that in his performance against France. He had 4 big chances.
For France.
For France. And he could have had a hat-trick on the day. So it's looking better, but the only reason I might get Martial in is just taking a chance on the upside, and just because it's a player that I really like, but it's not something I'd recommend at the moment.
That's what it comes down to, isn't it? You love Anthony.
Yeah, I love Anthony.
Also,
we spoke about this earlier. I think it would be nice to mention that Telles is actually a fair outside shout as a defender to pick. The only problem right now is we have a lot of good defenders who are good picks in the 5 to 5.5 million bracket, but he's got upside potential because he's going to be on a lot of set pieces. He's fairly attacking. The fixtures are there, and I feel like United are going to be keeping a few clean sheets if that double pivot is going to be persisting. That double pivot is capable of shutting down a lot of good teams.
Yeah, good shout.
Yeah.
Move on to City.
Yeah, move on to City.
So the fixtures for the next seven, next seven. They're top of the FFS fixture ticker. That's Spurs, Burnley, Fulham, United, West Brom, Southampton, and Newcastle. So Spurs is the only difficult fixture there, really.
I see what you did there.
So what do you guys think about City now? It's a totally different Man City this year, isn't it? But you still got to invest with those run of fixtures.
Yeah, I was reading an article on the Athletic. Tom, why don't you start us off on City?
Yeah, I mean, good point. Like, to kick it off, they look more solid defensively, don't they? I think Diaz and Laporte as a partnership look good, not giving up many shots. I think Cancelo, I think they look more secure. I think they look more balanced with him at left back. And it isn't just the last four games he's looked good at left back. If you remember last season, he played against Watford and Norwich at left back. When they beat Real Madrid 2-1, he was at left back as well. Now, the only issue I've got with Cancelo is that having two right footers on the left for City, because Sterling's going to be in that left wing slot. Now, will Mendy be preferred in some of those games when Pep wants to stretch the pitch and he doesn't want both of those players kind of moving inside? I guess that's linked to the kind of the winger position as well, because against Marseille, he went with Sterling on the right and Foden went on the left to stretch the play. That would be my only concern with Cancelo, that he might sit one or two of the games out, and it will probably be those easier ones when he's facing a packed defence that he wants to do that. But he's got so much upside, Cancelo, that it's probably worth the risk anyway. But that would just be maybe playing in the back of my mind a little bit. I think
that's the only game they played with the wingers on the natural side this season.
Yeah. So, and I think Marseille, if I remember rightly, they played a back five. So it was and they didn't offer any kind of anything going forward. They were literally just in the 5 and then a 4. And so you can see why he did that. Will he do that again, or will he try and get the width from the fullbacks? And that would be maybe where Mendy would be preferred. But yeah, Cancelo looks great when he does play there. So I think, like I say, I think it's probably worth the risk. Going forward, not at their best, not creating enough.
Before we move on to the forwards, let me just put you on the spot. If you were in wildcard, or if you were to invest in a City defender, would you go the safe option with Ruben Dias, or would you go Cancelo?
I think I'd go Cancelo. If I were to make a transfer and not on the wildcard for me this week, because for some reason I still own Vinagre, I think I'd have to go for Diaz just because of that security of starts. But if you're on a wild card, I think I'd probably be tempted to go Cancelo, because you can see a 15-pointer with him, can't you, in a game, clean sheet, goal.
He's City's second most creative player at the moment.
Sure.
Only De Bruyne has created more chances.
Exactly. That's why I think now that's probably a counter to your point, Tom, against these packed defenses. When he's the second most creative player, I think he's more likely to play those games, in fact.
Yeah, possibly, I mean, he's got that ability to move in field, hasn't he, and kind of playing that kind of deeper, more central role as well, which they did against Arsenal when he was on the right and he kept moving inside and kind of playing as a defensive midfielder, which helps in the build-up. But it just depends what Pep wants to do, doesn't it, and where he wants to get that width from. And maybe nothing will come to fruition with that. I'm not sure. It's just something which was playing on the back of my mind when I thought about Cancelo as an option.
And going forward, you were saying, Tom?
Yeah, well, they're not at their best, are they? They're not creating enough. They've scored the same amount of goals as Newcastle this season, haven't they? I think so far, which is crazy. And so you've kind of got to look at the reasons why it's happening. I think no focal point, no Aguero and Jesus is a big reason. I also think no David Silva as well, which hasn't probably been talked about enough. His kind of movement. The ability to pick out runners, they've missed him. There's nobody in that team who can do what David Silva can do. So that's going to have a knock-on effect. And then again, has Guardiola and the coaching staff maybe thought they're too open last year and maybe tried to rein it in a touch? Might be a bit of a combination of them all, I think. But despite all of that, those fixtures are so good that it's worth the risk. But the only real options I see going forward are De Bruyne and Sterling at the moment. I don't know. Would you be happy to punt on any of the other forward players?
I currently own Foden, and I'm in a dilemma at the moment when it comes to what to do with him. Because I feel like whenever he's been on the pitch, he's been one of the sharper, more informed players. And I've been visiting the city forums, etc. as well, and they're all for him. But I've been reading a fair bit on the Athletic as well, and Sam Lee's done some really good articles on Manchester City. Where what he says, and the thing with Pep is that he needs a progressor of the ball, a recycler of the ball, and he needs somebody who's taking risks. Now, De Bruyne is taking the mantle of that risk taker uh, in that City team, and Foden is in somewhat similar mold where he likes to take risks with his play. He's not like David Silva in terms of one-touch recycling pass until you find the exact right moment to play that through ball. I mean, because David Silva is a much more mature, he's a sensational player. And what they talk about in that article is the closest player to David Silva in that City team right now is Gundogan. Because he plays short tape and he's got that experience, and they're sort of molding Bernardo Silva into playing that role as well. So I want to see, in fact, what happens in that first game against weaker opposition.
Gundogan played in that Marseille game. I'm pretty sure he was in that role, and that was when it clicked. So maybe we see more of that going forward.
I feel like in that Marseille game, why it clicked is because I feel like hands down Sterling's best position is on the right hand side, but City have sort of evolved into playing narrower, more inverted winger sort of football. Everybody's cutting in and shooting. That's what Sterling's doing on the left side. That's what Mahrez is doing on the right side, which is why I think their creativity is down, because a lot of them are playing very selfishly at the moment. The numbers are down for all of them. City's numbers are down, but the creative numbers, the shot taking numbers are down for De Bruyne, they're down for Sterling, they're down for Mahrez. So they're also saying that this could be a case of them being tired and not having a proper preseason, etc., where Pep's gotten a chance to implement his ideas, in addition to them playing without either De Bruyne or a recognized striker. They're also in the bottom 5 in the league for the big chance conversion. They're 4th worst in the division at the moment, as well as shot conversion. There are only 5 teams who have a worse shot conversion than them. So not only are the quantity of chances reducing, they're not even turning or putting them in at the moment. All of that said, I feel like there's just too much quality in that team for them to not score many goals, for them to not show their true colors. And based on what I've seen on the last 3 years, I'm keen on jumping on a City double up or a triple up as soon as possible. If Salah is out for a couple of weeks, I already own Sterling and Foden. I'm leaning towards converting Foden into De Bruyne and making sure that I have the nailed on City attackers, because I feel like that will help give me an advantage. Yeah, but Foden could still make a mockery of the thing because of how good he's looked. I feel like ideally City should play, if Pep is going to persist with the inverted winger system, they should play Sterling on that left hand side and Foden on the right hand side, because I feel like he's much more effective. I don't know if Pep will play Foden centrally. I think Leeds was the only game he's played Foden centrally at the moment. But easier fixtures are worth taking that chance. But it's very optimistic of me to think that Pep does that. But so if Salah is out for a week, I think I give Foden a couple of games to see what he's doing. If not, I'll just get the nailed on City attackers. But I wouldn't be worried about jumping on Sterling or De Bruyne or Cancelo at this stage, just given the sheer quality of players that are there in the team, despite the poor stats.
If you guys had to pick one, De Bruyne or Sterling? Tom first?
While it looks like De Bruyne is on penalties, I'd be tempted to still go for him.
Will he still be on penalties, you think, after the miss?
Well, it depends who's on the field. If Aguero's starting, then he may be given it. But if it remains with Jesus leading the line, I don't know who it would go to. And it was just one miss. I mean, he tucked a few quite away in succession before that. And he'd looked pretty good before that with his penalties as well. So, I think he'll retain them at least until Aguero's on the field. And then it's maybe a little bit more up in the air. But yeah, I'd probably just side with De Bruyne at the moment. But like I say, I'm not against having them both in for that run.
Alar?
I'm leaning with De Bruyne at the moment, mainly because if
you say that, because you've always been Sterling over KDB.
Yeah, that's because of David Silva not being there. If David Silva was there, I'd lean towards going Sterling. But I feel like whoever's starting, if Gundogan or Bernardo Silva are going to be partnering De Bruyne in midfield. I think De Bruyne is playing a lot further forward than he does normally for City. And the creative onus is completely on De Bruyne at the moment. Nobody else is showing up, so I'd go De Bruyne.
Fair enough. I agree with you guys. So let's move on now to the Foxes. We touched upon them later. So the stat I have up over here now, over the last 4 game weeks, they've created a chance only every 10.3 minutes. That's the fifth lowest. Only Palace, Sheffield, Burnley, and Newcastle have created chances at a slower rate than Leicester. The fixtures have been all right. They've played Arsenal, Leeds, Wolves, and somebody else. Maybe I don't. Yeah, and
Villa, wasn't it?
And Villa, precisely. Yeah. So this is okay fixtures, not very difficult fixtures, but not very easy fixtures. What do you make? But they're sitting at the top of the table, so they're doing something right. What do you guys think about Leeds' attack specifically?
Tom is fairly bullish in Vardy, so why don't you kick us off, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you look at all the stats and stuff, they don't paint the Leicester attack in a great light. But I think that is to maybe do with the system. You know, they've been playing 3 at the back, haven't they? Quite a bit recently. Now, against easier opposition, I think they'll revert to a 4, so probably a 4-1-4-1 or a 4-2-3-1, and I think that'll change the dynamic. You know, they used a four-man backline against West Brom and Burnley earlier in the opening 2 games of the season. They scored 7 goals across those 2 games. Maybe a little bit fortunate to score that many, but they still did. I think Vardy's the perfect player for this one. You know, I can remember we were in a similar position last season. I think we were going into game week 5 or 6, and you looked at like all the striker stats. Vardy was absolutely nowhere to be seen on them, and then he kind of exploded and went on that run. I'm not expecting something like that, but I just think for that little run of fixtures, I think if you can get to him, I think he's going to be. He's a really good option, and he's probably the only option at Leicester because there's so much competition in the attacking midfield, isn't there? You know, they've got like. What's it like? Perez, Under, Maddison, Barnes, Pryor. You know, there's too many players there. So I think I'll definitely be looking at a Leicester defender, and I'll definitely be looking at Vardy, which I am kind of building into my transfer plans for next week.
But do you think the fixtures are that good? Because, you know, after Liverpool, they have Fulham, Sheffield United. And after that, it gets fairly tricky. They have Brighton, Everton, Spurs, United, Palace. They're fairly defensively decent teams, except for Everton, maybe. Yeah. So
I think I would jump on for Fulham, Sheffield United and Brighton, and then I would probably look to move away for that. But just to capitalise on those 3 games, which I think will suit Vardy, and then possibly move off then. That would be my plan anyway.
And you mentioned, you know, you like the defenders as well. Do you prefer them, say, to the likes of Cresswell or Chilwell or Zuma or Cancelo, who are opening up as options in that similar price bracket?
I think Cresswell looks great, doesn't he? I'd be tempted by Cresswell, but I'd be really tempted by Leicester too, because I think since Fofana came into the team last month, I think they've played 7 games in all competitions with him, and they've won 6 of them. They've scored 15 goals. They've conceded 3 goals over that run. I think he's really, you know, if they move to a back 4, they might lose a bit of that. But I think Justin, who looks safe for a few weeks now, doesn't he? I haven't heard too much about Pereira being back in training or anything just yet.
He's back. He's training with the team now.
Is he with the first team? So probably you get 2 or 3 weeks from Justin before he's maybe match fit. So maybe you'll probably have enough to maybe get that good fixture run. But if you want maybe a bit more security than Fofana, he probably won't lose his place with Soyuncu out for a while.
I don't think Justin loses his place either. I think he's going to be, if they persist with the back 3, I can see Justin playing in that back 3.
It depends, because it's interesting because I think he's been playing Fofana and Evans, and he's been playing Fuchs as a left centre back. But now Justin has been playing as a right centre back. So that's what's in Justin's favour. He's so versatile, right? He can slot in so many positions.
Yeah. Mainly is I think what has resulted in him being such a good asset is he's taking a lot of shots, because Leicester are again playing inverted fullbacks, so they're cutting in and shooting, and that's what's happening at Leicester. But I'm not as bullish as Tom is when it comes to Jamie Vardy, because I don't see them sustaining and relying just on winning penalties at the moment. That said, I mean, I wrote about Vardy in the article, and his stats against poor opposition, he tends to average 1.28 goals plus assists per 90 minutes against such kind of teams. So those are really good numbers against the kind of opposition. It's just Leicester haven't looked convincing in attack at the moment. And if I were to invest 10 million plus, I'd lean towards going in the direction of Timo Werner. I feel like his underlyings are a lot better. Chelsea's underlyings a lot better than Leicester City at the moment. So I see that as more sustainable. Or I'd plump money into the midfield and go with the likes of Rashford or the Manchester City midfielders.
I love how you always keep defaulting to the Chelsea player as the better pick.
I think they're the United of last season post restart in terms of just being underpriced. I think this is the last season we're going to be having so much value from those Chelsea attackers, and they're going to be clicking at the moment. So yeah, no bias, just being honest in terms of what I'm saying.
Yep. The jersey's in the post.
Hmm.
Let's just now move on to the hot fixtures. Let's first up Newcastle Chelsea.
Yeah, I see a convincing win for them. I've got my armband on I've got my armband on Werner at the moment. I thought he was unlucky to get just one goal last game week. I was on Salah captain before that because I feel like Klopp has always done really, really well against Rodgers. Remember, I think 4 goals last season as well. But outside of that, Chelsea seemed like a really good option to be and primarily because Newcastle are just so terrible at the moment.
Yes,
they're not offering anything in attack at all. They're going to sit deep, and Chelsea's got enough creativity.
Yeah, it's not a game that last season I probably would have worried maybe we won't be able to unlock them, but with so much creativity in the team now that's been recruited, I'm not very worried about this fixture. Tom, what do you think?
Probably like 2-0 Chelsea or something. I think like Werner, I think is a really good captain shout this week. Yeah, I think it'll cause some problems, and comfortable win. Newcastle just look devoid of any ideas at the moment, don't they? And if Wilson's out as well, it adds to that even more. So.
Absolutely. The next is the big one, Spurs Man City. It's a tricky one to call. Tom, you go first.
Yeah, you can see a draw in that one. I think like a 1-1 or something. But I do think that no Doherty for Spurs is big. I think that will benefit Sterling if he's playing off that left-hand side. You can see Aurier giving away a penalty in that game.
No, Eric Dyer as well, maybe.
Yeah. So I see a 1-1 or something like that. But it could, if I had to pick a winner, I would edge towards City on that one.
Yeah, but it has an under 2.5 goals feel to it for sure.
I feel like Spurs will get found out in this game. Pretty bullish on City for that one. I see them winning by 2 goals.
Okay, 2 goals wins.
Yeah, because I have confidence in the defense at the moment. I feel like Walker's been, except for giving away 2 stupid penalties, he's been actually really good this season.
Yes,
and they've been utilizing the space really well against the counter-attack. And he's playing on Son's side, so I think he's adept enough to take care of Son on that side, and because of that, I feel like City are going to win by 2 goals.
I think so. To 1-1 or maybe 1-0, 2-0 City, something like that. Tight KG game.
Yeah.
United West Brom. LR, you're up first for this one.
Yeah, I'm not really confident about us at the moment because we've been so inconsistent as a team this season. I do see us keeping a clean sheet, but I don't think West Brom are as leaky as everybody makes them out to be. They've improved in the last few. They've improved in the last few.
The defensive numbers aren't bad.
Yeah, so I see us winning by 1 or 2 goals, not more.
Because the problem with that game, again, like how Jo said on the last spot, if West Brom concede, then it's not like they're going to commit more men forward. It's going to be damage limitation from 0 to 90.
Yeah. It all depends on which Tony Marshall shows up, because if he's on song, he's so crucial in linking up that entire play, and he's got a lot more tricks up his sleeve. So if he's coming back into form, then I can see us winning by more. Otherwise, I don't. It's going to be very similar to the game that we had against Newcastle, where it was actually Bruno and Mata and their interplay that sort of outdid Newcastle. But I think West Brom are a much better team than Newcastle at the moment.
Yeah, I think if they have Bruno and Mata, Rashford's on song, they'll have too much for them, won't they? But I don't see it being a massive one. Again, something like a 2-0 sounds about right to me.
Yeah, just one thing we actually didn't touch about when it comes to United is Edinson Cavani. Now, whenever Marshall has had competition for his place, he's up to gear when it comes to his performance for the team. And I think we might see that again because...
Do you think there's any danger that that Cavani starts this weekend, or do you think Martial will be given that?
It depends because Martial has a back niggle for France at the moment, if I read. So it depends on how fit Martial is. If Martial is fully fit, I see Martial starting.
He starts, yeah.
I don't think Cavani is there just yet.
Did he play over the international break for Uruguay? I didn't really follow.
I know that he travelled. I don't know if he played.
Okay.
I'm not sure on that.
Okay. So the next we have Villa Brighton. Tom, you're first.
I think
a lot of people, Tom, thinking about captaining Grealish this game as well. So how do you see?
Yeah, I think it'll be a tighter game than what many people on first look. It seems like quite a straightforward fixture in a way, I suppose, but I don't think it will be. I can see this maybe being a draw, and I think that we have been quite inconsistent at home this year. You know, we beat Sheffield United 1-0, but they were reduced to 10 men really early on. It kind of changed the dynamic of the game. We then beat Liverpool 7-2, but then we've lost twice since to Leeds and Sheffield United. So I don't think it'll be easy. I can see it. I might either a narrow Villa win, but it wouldn't be a massive surprise for me if this ended up at 1-1.
If I remember correctly, you mentioned that such a game where the other team takes the onus of the attack, it sort of suits Villa more. So don't you see that happening?
I don't know. I think Brighton can. I see them being quite difficult to break down this weekend. I could get that wrong. I mean, we've got more weapons now. I suppose we've got Grealish. If he isn't on song, then we've got Barkley. So there's more kind of routes to goals than maybe we had last season. I just see this being quite a tough game. I've just got it in my head that this could be a narrow win or a score draw. 1-1, something like that. I just don't think we're going to have it all our own way.
So you're not keen on
Grealish as a
captain option?
I wouldn't captain Grealish, but I tend to go with bigger hitters in general. I'd be happy to take his points if he delivers, but no, I haven't considered him as a captain. And that goes to Calvert-Lewin as well, who we'll probably talk about in a bit. But yeah, I don't think they're quite captains yet.
All right. And do you think you guys persist with a 4-3-3, or now Barkley is going to be playing in the 10 and a 4-3-1?
I think it depends on the opposition. I think if we go up against three-man midfields, I think that we might need to match them. Otherwise, we might get overrun a bit. But I think Barkley, if we do move to that 4-2-3-1, he's going to be the one that goes up in support of Watkins, and that obviously adds, more to it adds a lot more to his game, and it'll give him more opportunity to kind of get on the score sheet. So difficult to say this weekend, but see how Brighton line up. They're a bit. They've been using a 3 at the back system quite a bit, haven't they? But yeah, let's see. So.
How do you see this game going, Zoph?
I mean, Brighton are a very difficult team to predict. Over the last 4 games, they've conceded the fewest shots in the box in the league. They've conceded just 12 shots in the box over 4 games. That's 3 per game. That's a ridiculously low average. So I don't think it I'm pretty much. I think it's the same boat as Tom. I think it's going to be a narrow win or a score draw.
Yeah, I see a score draw as well, but I don't see clean sheets in this game. I see 3 or 4 goals in this game either side.
I don't think Brighton have been involved in too many high-scoring games at all this season.
Yeah, I just feel like Villa especially have showed that they're good on the counter this season and are able to take advantage of teams.
I hope you're right.
Yeah. I'm getting Grealish as well, so I hope I'm right.
Yeah, if Brighton commit players forward, they'd be silly to do that, wouldn't they? They're better off to just sit back deeper and keep organised, and that may be enough to kind of nick something. So,
yeah.
Now Liverpool versus Leicester. What do you guys think? With all the injuries, I think Leicester have a decent shot at winning this one.
Yeah, I think Paul will win that. Liverpool will win that, but I don't think it'll be a walk in the park. I think Mane will be in for a big game. I think Leicester give up a load of chances down their right hand side, and I think he's going to be the one to benefit from it. I think he's a good captain shout this week as well, but it'll be quite a close game, I think.
Yeah, I think Liverpool still have enough quality in their team to win this game. I mean, despite the injuries, I was thinking of a team that Liverpool could field, and it still seems fairly strong to me. We have, then they can easily play Miller, Matip, and Fabinho in defense. I have a feeling Robbo's going to be fit enough to play that game. They can play a front 3 of Firmino, Jota, and Mane. That looks fairly strong to me. If Hendo isn't fit, they can still play Wijnaldum and Thiago is fit. So I don't think Liverpool have as much of a problem as it seems like, and there's enough quality in that team.
Do
So
you think he sets up differently? Maybe not play as high a line, because you have to remember a very vital part of that high line was Joe Gomez. Now these guys,
Yeah.
they don't. None of these centre backs, especially Matip and whatever, they don't have pace. They're decent like centre. So do you think he probably plays a deeper line? And he's aware of Vardy, right? He knows what Vardy can do. You think he plays
I think so.
deeper line?
Yeah, and I think the fullbacks have been deeper anyway over the past few weeks. Certainly from what I've been seeing, Trent when he was fit and Robertson, they've been operating from deeper positions anyway. So I think that you could see Klopp rein it in a little bit, and that is why I think we'll probably see the 4-3-3 rather than that 4-2-3-1 again, just to give them that little bit more security, especially bear in mind what Leicester are good at.
I agree.
all right.
The last one, Fulham Everton.
Again, I think Fulham need to be given credit here. I think they've looked fairly good in the last couple of weeks as well, and not just because they're sitting and defending. They're playing some decent football as well. Mitrovic, Kearney, and Lookman have been doing fairly decent, and Everton haven't looked that good in defense.
They've
But
lost some mojo.
they've lost some mojo. But now they have Richarlison and James Rodriguez back. I don't know what the scene is with them being in South America and whether they're going to be able to make it in time, because last time it was
Sunday. It's on Sunday this time, so I think they'll be fine the game.
All right, great. That's an important bit of
the
news.
main problem I think they're going to have is Allen apparently has suffered an injury. I think now without Allen, I think the midfield is significantly weaker, because ultimately you can play Doucouré, you have to play Gomez or Sigurdsson. I think Allen is a huge cog in that midfield.
Who replaces him? Delph is still playing for Everton.
Tom Davis, maybe.
Tom Davis,
but
maybe, yeah.
But they're nowhere near as good. The replacement.
It's a big drop. It's a drop off, isn't it? Yeah.
Right. It's a drop off in defense, though. In offense, I see them like once Richarlison is back, it completely changes that team. So,
and there's a good piece on the Athletic also about how James has actually been responsible for a lot of the goals they've conceded. Teams are now started to work out that he's not tracking back at all. So they just keep overloading that right-hand side. And Coleman, I think, is also injured now. I think he picked up an injury again with Ireland or something. So I don't know who's going to be playing at right back. Maybe Kenny. So it'll be interesting.
Or Godfrey.
Who's also again very poor in terms of pace. So
and he doesn't make any runs forward. That's the problem.
Yeah. So could be good for Lookman then, if he's coming on off the left.
That's the point I was making. So
you can see an Everton win, can't you? But it won't be easy.
If I was Fulham, I'd fancy giving this a go more so than I would like 5 to 6 game weeks ago when Everton were in peak form.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. But I still see Everton edging it though, despite all these injuries, because I feel like Richarlison is just so important to them. So if Richarlison and James are starting, that's enough quality in that team.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think DCL is a captain option, as Tom mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't go there either.
Let's just move on to the differentials. We'll just get through this quick. LR, you've gone with Richarlison. Tell us why.
Because I feel like he's going to be making such a huge difference. And, Fulham are playing well, but you can't ignore the stats in defense where they've looked leaky all season. And I'm actually looking at a few strikers, like I mentioned earlier, to replace Kane. And Richarlison is someone I'm eyeing up because I think Everton have good fixtures for the next 3. So I'm just targeting a short-term upside punt for 3 weeks before I move on to other strikers. Though if we'll address this while we're here at the moment, the thing with the way I'm leaning is I feel like Antonio is a striker to have in that spot at the moment, but I don't think he's going to be starting this week. If not, I'm tempted to go Bamford because the stats are just there, and I think Leeds fixtures turn in 3 or 4 weeks where they have a good run of fixtures for 6 to 7 weeks. So I think I can see off the next 3 weeks that the logic in your head is they're tough fixtures, but like we mentioned earlier, fixtures don't matter when it comes to Leeds because if they can dominate possession against City and Pool, they can do it against literally anybody. So I'm thinking about that position. But I like Richarlison's next 3. I think he'll get a few points.
Yeah, I think Richarlison's good.
Good shout.
I've gone with Chris Wood. I think Burnley are desperate need of picking up some points. They're usually decent at home, so I think backing Wood to get on the score sheet against Palace. Tom, you've gone with Armstrong. I found this very interesting against Wolves. Could you tell us about this?
Yeah, I watched the game against Newcastle, and it was kind of a really interesting game. One, because I had McCarthy and Walker-Peters, but also because with Danny Ings out, it was going to be really interesting to see how they lined up the front line. And there was talk of Shane Long coming in, but they went with Walcott, and what Walcott did was he kind of drifted quite deep at times, but he also tended to drift to the right, as he naturally does, as his usual starting position, and that created space. And you had Armstrong, who plays, when you see the formation come up on the Sky Sports screen or whatever, he's positioned on the right. He doesn't play there. He plays as a 10, really, on just to the right. And with Walcott kind of vacating space, I just saw quite a few opportunities where Southampton didn't quite make that final ball to him, but I think that he'll do well. I think he's a really good option. And I think that with Wolves, if they continue playing with Kilman and Aït-Nouri on that left-hand side of that defence, I think it's quite an inexperienced duo. It wouldn't surprise me if Saiss came back in this weekend, but if they do continue with Kilman and Aït-Nouri, I do think Armstrong and Walcott could cause them a few problems down that side. So it's a bit punty. I can't imagine many people going for him now, but I like what I saw, and I think if Southampton are going to cause Wolves problems, it'll probably be in that area.
No, I like it. It's out of the box thinking.
Walcott is a good one to keep an eye on also, because I feel like he's just pushing himself ahead of Redmond in the pecking order, and I don't think he's a good crosser of the ball. He hasn't been, so I feel like at Everton he was playing in the wrong position. I think this inside 10 position that he plays for Southampton, where he's closer to the goal. Eventually, when innings does come, I think it suits him, and at 5.8 or 6 million, I think it would be a handy pick if he seems nailed.
And they have some good pick. They have a couple of good fixtures, don't they? In 11 and 12, they go to Brighton, and then they have Sheffield United. So that might be a nice little kind of, a couple of games to take a punt on an Armstrong or a Walcott or something.
Good shout.
Right. Let's move on now to Bakar's stats. So he's got 3 of them up for us. The first one is about Raul Jimenez. So he runs a comparison here where he compares Jimenez from game week 1 to 4 this season to game week 5 to 8. So minutes per shots inside the box, 32.7 versus 179.5. That's a lot. Minutes per big chance, 90 versus 359. So the message is simple. The drop in numbers is massive. Get rid with better value options around.
Bit of it's no brainer for everybody out there.
Yeah, as an owner, yeah.
All right, the next one is a stat about Hakim Ziyech. I feel like Zoph is given the duty of the responsibility of reading this stat to me on purpose.
I'll leave all the Chelsea adulation to you.
All right. I'll be a spot and read it out. No team has had more big chances than Chelsea over the past 2 game weeks. No surprise that this has coincided with Ziyech starting for Chelsea. No player has created more big chances in the league since his run of start. His form has also helped Werner, who is now averaging a big chance every 59 minutes. I'm really happy about that, compared to every 260 minutes earlier. We'll discuss this a little later. I think there's a question, but I just pose this question to you right now. Are you tempted at all by Werner? And if people are picking between Werner and Hakim for a position, are you very strong in terms of picking Hakim over Werner at the moment?
See, it's interesting because, like you said, we read that article on The Athletic that talks about how Tammy is actually bringing the best out of Werner in that role. So I think Werner has actually found a spot on the wing, and his numbers actually in terms of attacking numbers, they're still not great. I know he could have got a hat-trick last game, but I think that was against Sheffield, and I think on the wing he might be very effective on the counter-attack. So, but I still don't think, I think with so many cheap forwards out there, there's certain cheap forwards who can match him. So I'm still would prefer Ziyech in that aspect. And I do think now in terms of what Ziyech offers to the Chelsea team, it's unique. Now I think once Pulisic is back, it's going to be between 2 of Abraham, Pulisic and Werner every week. Now keep the Champions League also in mind. I think you might see Werner's minutes managed a little bit more so than Ziyech's.
Fair enough.
So the last stat he's got, for those looking for a Trent replacement, I think Joao Cancelo is an excellent option. Over the past 4 game weeks, Man City are second for big chances conceded and have shown considerable improvement in their defensive numbers. Cancelo offers potential at both ends of the field. Amongst defenders, he stands top for chances created and expected goal involvement over the past 4 game weeks.
Yep, we discussed this at length before. I think all of a sudden agreement is going for him. All right, we move to the question and answer.
We have a quick peek at the teams first. We just talk through your team, LR, and your plans.
All right, I have 2 free transfers, and I'll just talk through my team for the benefit of the audio listeners. I have Martinez as my keeper. In defense, I have Chilwell, Target, and Lamptey. In midfield, I have Salah, Sterling, Foden, and Podence. And up front, I have Werner, who currently has my armband, and Kane and Calvert-Lewin. Now, at the moment, I have 2 free transfers, so I'm thinking about downgrading Kane to a cheap striker, or like I mentioned, Richarlison or Marshall, and upgrading Podence to Grealish. Grealish is my number 1 target at the moment, but I could take a -1, and I also feel like if Salah's injured, I'll take a -1. It's a good time to maybe uh, improve a bench spot because I feel like it's going to be very useful in December during the crunch fixture. So I have Mitchell and Burke in my team, who are both non-starters at the moment. So I'm also thinking of taking this opportunity to reshuffle and getting one more starter in my team as well, because I think it's going to be useful in the future.
Fair enough. Now, we pull up your team, Tom. There's a lot of flags over here. Walk us through it.
Yeah, so got McCarthy in goal, Alexander-Arnold, Ayling and Walker-Peters at the back, Salah, Ziyech, Son and Rashford in midfield, and Bamford, Kane and Jimenez up front. And then on the bench, Steer, Justin, Reed and Vinagre. It's quite hard to kind of commit to a transfer strategy right now. I've got 2 free transfers. An idea that I've had is to sell Alexander-Arnold this week and move him to a 4.5 option, either Target or Kufal. And then that leaves me with 2 free transfers next week to move on Son and Jimenez to De Bruyne and Vardy for free. Now, that does leave me with quite a few heavy hitters in there, but it wouldn't be a 6 to 8 game week thing. It would just be to capitalise on those Leicester fixtures. It does mean no Grealish for a couple more weeks, which I'm not entirely comfortable with. But if it's part of a bigger plan, then I might do it. The backline isn't ideal, but I don't think that Ayling fixture against Arsenal, I don't think it's too bad a fixture. And then Walker-Peters and McCarthy again away at Wolves. It's not ideal because I've got Jimenez as well, but it's trying to look at the next few game weeks rather than just this game week in isolation.
I have respect for you for resisting Grealish. Once I saw Ziyech play, I couldn't resist. I cannot watch a Chelsea game now without Ziyech. So
I'm exactly the same. You kind of Grealish pops up and he scores and you're cheering, but then part of you thinks, imagine how much better this would be if he was in my team.
Exactly.
So what do? Do I downgrade Son this week to do that? Because you're not going to lose Rashford. I'm really happy with Ziyech. Sheffield United have given up more headed attempts than any other side this season. So it seems like the wrong week to take out Ziyech. So it's just about maybe that Son downgrade is what I should do.
What are you thinking about the armband?
I'm kind of tempted by Rashford. I think if Salah isn't fit, I don't want to go near Son or Kane. Bamford isn't a captaincy option. Jimenez's numbers are just so, I'll take an assist from him this weekend, to be honest. I'll take what you get. So then you're leaving yourself, there's not many good options, is there? I don't want to go to a Grealish. I think Rashford this week, if he's confirmed fit, he might be the best option for me.
I think Rashford probably in your team is where I would go.
Yeah.
I'd be tempted though, I'll tell you. I mean, that team, I'm surprised at your resilience to save that wild card at the moment. I'd have probably put the trigger in that position.
Yeah, no, I can completely understand that and see why people are doing it. I just think because if I do play that wild card, I would want probably triple City and I'd probably want triple Leicester. So next week makes more sense to me to play it then.
Because of the fixtures this week. That's fine.
Yeah, simply because of that. And if you're going to invest in 6 players from City and Leicester, it doesn't make sense to do it this week, I don't think. But it has played on my mind a little bit. I have been considering it, but I think I'm going to try and get through this week with an average score and then maybe hit it next week. So, but still a bit up in the air.
Just a little bit of added information. I think I read Ben Diddy's tweet where he mentioned that we might know about the fixtures in game week 18 and 19 in the next 10 odd days as well. So if people haven't pulled the trigger, that could be a valuable piece of information when you're making a wildcard team with half an eye on those fixtures as well.
I think that's maybe why I haven't pulled it yet, because I would really like to see what those fixtures are like before committing to a plan. If you know what I mean, if we get that information, we may end up being able to build a good team for that double game week over if we've got 6 or 7 weeks or whatever ahead of that game week to build that team, and the fixtures are okay on the run up, then the wildcard might not be absolutely necessary to use around that time. But without those fixtures, it's very hard to commit either way, isn't it? So if we could get those fixtures, I would feel a hell of a lot more comfortable making a decision about whether to play a wild card or not.
Fair enough.
Makes sense.
Fair enough.
I'm not going to go through my team since you already done that. I'll just walk through Bakar's team, which he sent us. He's already made one free transfer. He's done TA out for Cancelo. So I'll read out the rest of his team. He's got Martinez in goal, Kilman, Cancelo, Lamptey, Son, Sterling, Podence, Salah, Calvert-Lewin, Werner, and Watkins. I think he has one more free transfer. He mentioned that he would be upgrading Podence. I don't remember to whom though.
Yeah. And he was thinking of selling Son as well.
I think so. I think he wanted to bring in a captain option. I think maybe a United player, if I remember right.
Correct.
Cool. Let's now move on to the Q&A.
All right. The first question is from Avash Maitra at the rate Maitra 36. This one's for you, Tom. Thoughts on PVA as a differential?
Bit too short term for me. I think they've got 3 good fixtures, but after that it turns pretty quickly and it's a sell. And do you want a 5.45? I don't know. I forget how much he is. I think he's 5.4. Do you want that kind of asset? And it's penciling a transfer for just 3 or 4 weeks down the line. It's not quite a good enough batch of fixtures for me. I would prefer to go with somebody like Cancelo, I think, over Van Arnold, because you can kind of leave them in there for a longer spell.
All right. Next question's for you, Zoph. It's from Krish Amisur. Is Ziyech a better pick than Werner, considering that he's 1 million more cheap? I think we've already discussed this.
We can move that. We can move on.
We can move on to the next one. It's from Tunde at the rate Bubblegun59. With all these injuries and COVID cases, at what point does one consider using his free hit if he's already used his wildcard? Again, we discussed this earlier, but if I feel like if you can field 10 players, save your free hit and take a few hits, I'd prefer that over using a free hit chip at the moment, especially because we don't know what we're going to be facing in Gameweek 18-19. So yeah, wait until then. Next question's for you, Tom. It's from Mohammadi. If you have to choose between Grealish and DCL for captaincy in Gameweek 9, which one would you choose between these two?
Grealish, I think. He's just got more routes to points. He's more involved. I can imagine Calvert-Lewin as a captain option is quite a hard watch because he isn't involved that heavily, is he? And then he will pop up with a goal, and he's that kind of striker. Whereas if you're captaining Grealish, he's going to be on the ball lots. He's going to be central to everything that Villa do. I would feel more comfortable putting it high on him, and there's still a chance that if we get a penalty, he'll step up and take it. It's not 100% Watkins yet, so yeah, I'd be tempted to side with Grealish.
All right. Next question is for you, Zoph. It's from John Hunter. Would you consider a City defensive double up on wildcard, worried about the opportunity cost of being limited to only one City attacker?
So there's 2 aspects of this. Number one, I don't think either Diaz or Laporte have enough upside. Besides, in terms of the clean sheet potential, if you're going to buy a defender from a premium team, you want him to have a little bit more attacking upside. That's A, and B, as the question itself states, do you want the option to be open to get in a Sterling? Or let's say if one of Aguero or Jesus gets injured, to get the other one. You don't want to lock yourself out of that option.
I'm in agreement with this. Next question is from Pras United _FPL. Hi Pras, how's it going? Which 3 City are the right City players? KDB plus Sterling worth a shout? Maybe Jesus, Cancelo, and or Diaz. I feel like the standout 3 City picks for this run of fixtures for me are KDB, Sterling, and Cancelo. I think going anywhere else is overthinking, and I feel like Jesus has earned enough reputation to have consistently split minutes with Aguero at the moment, so I wouldn't be worried about not reaching there. And if you are, it's a Sterling downgrade or a KDB downgrade to get them. So yeah. All right, next question for you, Zoph. It's from Sanjay Krishna. Should we tend to go for players from teams that aren't playing for European leagues, considering packed schedules and injuries, irrespective of form, like that from Everton or Wolves?
So the teams who are playing in Europe, they're playing there because they have been the best teams in the league, the best teams in the league for the previous years. So I don't think that's necessarily a reason to abandon them. And like he mentioned, the other teams like Everton or Wolves, they are both teams that you would say are on a downward trajectory in terms of form as well. So I don't necessarily think that's a wise strategy. In
Yeah, you
fact,
just
you'd rather go in for the nailed players, right? Rather go in for the players who won't get rotated, the likes of Bruno.
all right. Good piece of advice that from Zoph. Next question is from Anik Majumdar. This one's for you, Tom. He wants you to rank the chief strikers: Adams, Antonio, Bamford, and Watkins. I'm interested in what you think as well because I'm looking for one.
Jeez, that's a question. Cheers, guys. I think if we are looking slightly longer term, I know we spoke about Bamford and Watkins, and how Watkins over the next three probably has a bit more upside due to the fixtures, or not. In your case, you didn't agree on that, Lateriser, but yeah, I think if we're looking long term, so we're looking kind of 8 game weeks, I think Bamford, Antonio, I'd put as the best 2 options. I find it really hard to split them. Maybe Bamford just does edge it a little bit, but they're both racking up when they play good XG, they're good stats, lots of big chances. So I'll put them ahead of Watkins and Adams slightly. And I do think once the Ings comes back, he's probably the Southampton striker to have over Adams. So that would maybe make me sway towards Bamford or Antonio, and then probably Watkins, and then Adams at the lowest of the 4. But it's a pretty difficult question, that.
Right. All right. Nice. Good answer. I'm in agreement with you, I think, in terms of what you said. You were saying something, Zoph?
No, I was just saying the problem now with someone like Antonio, I worry about is I know Antonio is going to get injured at some point. I know you don't have as much concerned about injured players, but I feel Antonio is just a transfer out at some point down the line.
Yeah. I'll tell you what my thinking is, though, Zoph, especially now that you are on wildcard, you sort of have, there's 8 game weeks of data that's fairly ideal as well, right? So you have sort of an ideal team on paper at the moment. There are not many fires to put off. So you are, now that you're on wildcard, in a position to take those 1 or 2 risks, because you will never have that many fires to put off this season. That's what I think.
Good point.
That's a good point.
And I guess Jota comes into that as well, doesn't he? That type of player which you could move out because your defence is hopefully going to be set now for 6 to 8 game weeks.
Fair point.
All right. Next question is from FPL Nepali. I'll take on this one. DCL versus Richarlison and KDB versus Sterling. Who would I pick if I was in a wild card? Considering that I need to gain some rank. First off, don't ever play if you're lowly ranked. Don't think, never change your strategy. Always pick the correct players. That will always pay off more rather than going for differentials for the sake of going for differentials. In fact, I wrote an article on the Scout as well where I maybe was trying to be too clever with such and such picks, and that doesn't always pay off. And when it comes to the 2 problems that you have, DCL versus Richarlison, I feel like DCL, I mean, we've had 8 game weeks and he's blanked once so far this season. He's the standout fixture player in that price bracket. Don't overthink it. He's going to be at the end of every opportunity that Everton create. So TCL for me still. And between KDB and Sterling, like I mentioned, I prefer KDB at the moment because he's playing much more advanced than he did last season. And Sterling, when you watch a game, when you watch Man City, you can't know whether Sterling's on it or not. And so far, he hasn't looked on it. And you'll see a certain spark. You'll see when he's shooting, when he's on form, he doesn't tend to think. He shoots immediately. And when he's off form, he always takes 1 or 2 extra touches before shooting. We saw that against Liverpool as well, where he could have easily squared the ball to Jesus, who had a tap in for a goal, but he decided to take a shot, which Alisson saved. So he's just not looking bang in form at the moment. And for that reason, I'd pick KDB. Next question is for FPL Croat. It's from FPL Croat. I think all 3 of us can take this. What do you think is the optimal team structure for the foreseeable future? 3-4-3, where we can have 2 cheaper forwards and a premium attacker, example Vardy or Werner, or a 3-5-2 where you would afford 1 more premium mid, example like Bruno. We know Zoph is looking at 3-5-2 at the moment. What's your thinking there, Tom?
Yeah, I would probably sway towards a 3-4-3 just because there seems to be quite a lot. There's so many good options up front at the moment. I think if I was playing a wild card, I looked at kind of like a wild card next week, and I think I'd probably go with Vardy, Bamford, and one of Callum Wilson and Antonio, and it just seems like I don't want to limit myself to 2, if you know what I mean, right now. So I think a 3-4-3 would be the way that I goes. But at the same time, it's kind of hard to argue when you see Zoph's wildcard team and you see those 5 midfielders. Equally, it could do well. But if it was me, 3-4-3, I think.
It essentially comes down to Vardy or Werner versus Bruno Fernandes in that price bracket as well. It comes down to your preference. And like Zoph mentioned, he thinks Brewster is the best 4.5 million 8th attacker, where Ziyech is the second best option for a little more. So yeah, I see both sides of the argument, but I'd go 3-4-3 just because I'm more comfortable.
So, but I disagree here. I wouldn't even go for a premium forward this year. I think what FPL has reacted to the dearth of forwards that were there last season by underpricing several forwards this year. So I think there's so much value in the forwards under 7 mil that there's no point paying above 9 mil, because the guys are going to, I think the lower guys can achieve at least 70 to 80% of what the premium guys can.
I agree with you, Zoph. If I was to go 3-5-2, I wouldn't go with a premium striker at the moment.
Yeah, and just keep the captaincy on one of those midfielders, because that's the problem. If you don't have a premium forward, I don't think you're as likely to put a captaincy ever on a forward, are you? Really? But yeah, no, it's a viable strategy.
Right.
All right, and that brings us to the end of the podcast. Any last words, guys?
No, it was great getting back to FPL mode. Excited for the weekend.
Anything from you, Tom?
Yeah, just kind of just try and stay reasonably calm up until the press conferences on Friday, and then hopefully by that time it'll become a bit clearer who's in and out, and then react after we've got as much information as possible and make your transfers then.
Good advice.
All right, that's it from us. See you. Hopefully you get green arrows after the international break, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe.
Yep. Thank you. Yep. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.
See ya.